At 5:23 in the afternoon local time, an American Air Force F-16 belonging to the 421st Fighter Squadron was executing top cover operations for an American naval formation sailing along the Yemeni coastline. The patrol mission was proceeding smoothly up to that point, but the situation was about to transform dramatically within mere moments. The F-16 aviator had not detected that a Houthi battery position situated near Houthi had acquired the aircraft as a target and had fired a missile. Given a maximum operational range of 23 kilometers and a velocity equal to 2.8 times that of sound, the aviator possesses only a handful of seconds to respond to the attack. Fortunately, the F-16 possesses multiple electronic countermeasure systems capable of neutralizing this lethal ordnance, transforming it into a harmless threat. On the aircraft's nose sits the unmatched radar, which represents the first defensive barrier against the Houthi missile assault. After identifying the SA-6 at a distance of 42 kilometers, the aviator initiated a steep dive, bringing the aircraft from 30,000 feet down to 15,000 feet altitude. This maneuver proves essential since the SA-6 possesses target tracking capabilities. The SA-6 belongs to the semi-active missile category. This implies that Houthi ground radars must irradiate the target with sufficient energy to establish a firing solution. Once airborne, the SA-6 acquires this controlled data while it screams toward the objective. When it approaches, the internal sensor mounted on the warhead activates to locate the F-16 in the final moments of its trajectory. By executing this vertical dive, the aviator hoped to disrupt the firing solution of the incoming SA-6, but the maneuver proved insufficient. Thanks to the radar's capability to scan fighter targets with a 5 square meter radar cross-section up to 470 kilometers, the system managed to spot additional SA-6 missiles approaching. The aviator continued with evasive maneuvers, having only 18 seconds to respond to this barrage. However, these irregular turns create enormous difficulties for the radar's ability to follow objectives. Although the system can track up to 20 targets simultaneously, the radar's effectiveness in spotting targets at 60 degrees off boresight decreases down to 47%. With all the erratic turns the pilot is executing, the F-16 becomes practically blind to some of the incoming missiles. And this is where the next system comes into play. Looking here at each wing pylon, it's possible to notice this device. This is the Pylon Integrated Dispensing System, or PIDs, and it's the next phase in breaking the engagement chain. While each system weighs 19 kilograms and reduces each F-16's useful load by 3%, this compromise is well worth it for its capabilities. Equipped with 6 Henstay R60 V2 ultraviolet sensors distributed around it, each system provides 360-degree spherical coverage, capable of detecting missile launches at distances up to 10 kilometers. These systems can deploy infrared flares and radio frequency chaff bundles. When the PIDs detected the incoming SA-6 missiles, they deployed 12 MJU-50B flares and 24 RR-180 chaff bundles that generated a half-kilometer RF decoy cloud. Nevertheless, this was not sufficient to eliminate the lock of the approaching missiles. So, the aviator had one final option. Positioned here under the aircraft's fuselage sits an AMLQ-184 jamming pod. The pod can jam threats across the spectrum from 2 to 20 gigahertz utilizing digital RF memory technology. This is more than adequate to counter the SA-6 fire control radar, which operates between 6 and 8 gigahertz. As soon as the pilot activated it, the pod severed the incoming missile's connection with their ground control station. This reduced the XA-6 precision by 70%, forcing the remaining missiles into a ballistic trajectory that passed harmlessly beyond the aircraft. However, despite this defeat, The Houthis were far from finished for that day. Only 44 minutes later, at 6:07 in the evening local time, an American MQ-9 Reaper drone originating from Chabeli Airfield in Djibouti was conducting a routine reconnaissance flight approximately 50 miles northeast of Haida. The drone was monitoring Houthi supply convoys as they reinforced enemy positions near the town when Houthi gunners, frustrated at failing to shoot down the F-16, decided to try their luck again. Though less sophisticated than the F-16, its Pandora missile warning system detected another Houthi SA-6 launch. Within 8 seconds of detection, the Reaper ordered its ANLE-47 dispenser to launch countermeasures as the drone climbed above 15,000 feet to keep all incoming missiles outside the 30-degree dead zones directly beneath the aircraft's horizon. As the Reaper continued climbing, its AL countermeasure system launched 8 flares in 4 seconds. This created a 300 square meter chaff cloud to confuse the incoming missiles. However, this system isn't unlimited, with a maximum load of 60 MJU-60B flares and 120 RR-180 chaff bundles. This is sufficient for 12 engagements per sortie. Yet, once the Reaper expends 75% of this inventory, it must abort the mission and return to base. How the operator determines whether to utilize these countermeasures or not is with assistance from its ALR-69 radar warning receiver. The ALR-69 radar warning receiver can monitor frequencies from 0.5 to 20 GHz. This enables it to detect SA-6 radar emissions at approximately 200 kilometers with 1 degree azimuth accuracy. With this active, the Reaper can respond to Houthi missile launches within 2 seconds. Because of this, the drone operators manage to deploy sufficient countermeasures in time to avoid a direct hit, but the Reaper didn't emerge unscathed. After landing at the base, maintainers discovered that several of the SA-6 12,000 steel pellets had punctured its right wing. Luckily, the drone was capable of flying again shortly thereafter. Although these missile launches may appear routine, they were anything but. This strike was the first occasion the Houthis have fired at a manned aircraft in this conflict. How the United States would respond to this unprovoked attack has established a new precedent in this ever-intensifying conflict. In the immediate aftermath of these attacks, both U.S. Central Command and the White House were shocked by the brazen daylight attack on American forces. President Trump soon decided that nothing less than an immediate devastating response was warranted. Within 8 hours of the attack, the guided missile destroyer, the USS Spruant, received orders to sail closer to the Yemeni coast. Once in its launch box, the crew received encrypted launch orders from Central Command to strike. While normally Tomahawk missiles would be utilized for this, the Navy opted for a rather creative measure. Every DDG carries a mixed loadout of Tomahawks, SM-2S, ESSM anti-submarine rockets, and SM-6 missiles inside their VLSLs. BMD-capable ships also carry SM-3S. The reason for this mixed assortment of missiles is to enable a surface vessel to conduct offensive and defensive strikes against various threats. So, why the Navy chose the SM-6 is interesting, because it sends a very clear message. The SM-6 is among the Navy's most advanced air defense missiles, second only to the SM-3. Destroyers typically preserve these missiles for the most dangerous threats, since the missile can deliver a 1,500 kilogram explosive warhead at an impressive 3.5 times the speed of sound. But while this was designed to be an air defense missile, in recent years the Navy has repurposed it to also function as a ground strike missile. While the Tomahawk has a longer range than the SM-6 at around 1,500 miles, the SM-6 is much faster. With that greater speed, it's much harder to shoot down and is an essential stopgap until the Navy strike missile becomes fully operational. Because of that, The Navy modified the SM-6 to operate in surface mode as well. However, despite having this capability for years, the Navy hasn't publicly fired one of these missiles this way until now. Why the Navy chose the SM-6 for this is because the target they were pursuing was moving. According to satellite imagery, the SA-6 launcher and its accompanying IS-91 radar were still in Houthi, but with the launcher having a top speed of around 34 miles per hour, the launcher could be hundreds of miles away by the time the order came to strike. This meant time was of the essence, and there wasn't a second to waste. After receiving the firing order from CENTCOM, the Spruce crew made best speed toward the launch basket in the southern Red Sea. As this was happening, the combat watchstanders had less than 30 minutes to create, route, and approve a firing plan. That's because a missile doesn't simply fly in a straight line. That would be incredibly easy to shoot down. Rather, the crew must prepare sometimes up to dozens of waypoints to get the missile to the first pre-planned waypoint. Once it reaches there, the classified mission library takes control and sends the missile hurtling toward its target. With a flash of light, two SM-6s roared out of the VLS cells at approximately 3:45 in the morning local time. With only several hundred miles to travel, it would take roughly 6 minutes before the SM-6s reached their target. Although the Houthis have built up a robust air defense network, this meant nothing for the SM-6 as it glided effortlessly before smashing into the SA-6 launcher. In the aftermath of the attack, signals collection intercepts confirmed the site's destruction along with the elimination of 8 Houthi operators. But the United States was far from being done. From 2014 to 2015, the Houthis captured 12 to 15 SA-6 launchers from the Yemeni government. Over the past decade, Iran has substantially assisted them in improving their radars and installing modern seekers on the missiles. Because of this, the Houthis now possess an extensive stockpile of ordnance they have shown a willingness to use against American aircraft. This could not be tolerated. After the February 20th strike that achieved revenge against the individual launcher, the Navy figured it was time to give the Houthis a permanent reminder of why not to attack American aircraft. Beginning at 6 o'clock in the evening local time, the first of 4 waves of F-18s took off from the deck of the Harry S. Truman. And these aircraft were armed with something much more powerful than normal. While a typical strike mission like this would call for a 2,000-pound JDM or bunker buster, the Navy went all out on this one. The F-18s that took off that night were armed with AGM-154 joint standoff weapons. The AGM-154 JSOW is a long-range air-to-surface weapon that can reach 117 to 130 kilometers if launched at high altitudes. With a warhead carrying either 145 bomblets or 192 pounds of explosives, this GPS-guided weapon is the long arm of the law in this region. And that is exactly what it was that night. Between 6 o'clock in the evening and 11:30 that night, wave after wave of F-18s made attack runs on storage bunkers near Sauna. And if that wasn't enough, the guided missile destroyer, the USS Gravely, fired 6 Tomahawk missiles at the smoldering rubble after it was all done. All told, the United States destroyed 14 Kaher M2 ballistic missiles, 3 more SA-6 launchers, and 23 various other anti-ship cruise missiles. But while this strike severely degraded the Houthis' ability to launch attacks on air and ground targets, this operation has not destroyed all of their arsenal. That will be left for another day's fight. Do you think the United States could be doing more to destroy the Houthis' ability to wage war? See you later.